This is how I built my fabrication table. Not saying this is the best way to do it, but let's kick off to the montage.
Okay, so I'm just mitering the top. I made a mistake here. I'm gonna call it mistakes all at the end of the video. So just laying this out, rough shape, to see if I like the size. I ended up welding it off of camera, so you won't get to see that. Fitting up the legs, we're gonna tack those in place. We'll get a measurement for the, I think they're called stretcher. So we'll be building the shelf underneath to put, well, there you go. I might even build a drawer. We got this side nice and straight. This side, I don't know what I'm doing, man. I'm cutting, my bandsaw's not cutting straight, so if you guys know, put it down below. So I say the bandsaw's not cutting straight. It's really, I just don't know how to use my tools because I'm a beginner. I'm just gonna go ahead and tack these legs in place. I'm just using 60-13 rod. I'm just gonna square this up and then I find out, well, it's not close. We're just gonna snap that off and start over. I have to end up cleaning this off and welding all those legs back on. Once I get all the legs back on, I'll come back around and start putting in the support for the shelf that's going to be at the bottom. There's another thing that I would change about the way that I did this shelf. I used wood, so I would actually probably just use an expanded metal. I think that'll help. You can see my little shop gremlins. They're running around. They're a real big help at making projects go way slower than they should. Guys, tons of grinding. I ground down every single one of those welds. I ground down every single one. And I'll tell you why. Just as soon as I'm done with this one. Okay, just finished up grinding. You can see how ugly my welds are. Even ground, I got big old holes, so I'm gonna have to chip that stuff out. I'm gonna fill it from this pole all the way over there. I'm gonna cut these long pieces. I measured them and I just cut them and tacked them in place just like I did with the rest of the table. Guys, this table was just cutting, tacking, squaring, breaking it off, cutting, tacking, grinding, and finding out fabrication is a lot of the same repetition over and over. So I think if you just get really good at the basics, it makes this job, makes it a lot easier. Tried to put a little lens over this so you could see an arc, but it didn't really work. If anybody has any ideas on ways you can do this, let me and everybody else know in the comments. So here I'm just creating the base for the casters. I got them on Amazon. I'll put the link in the description. Let's go ahead and talk about the mistakes on the top of the table. I would have, instead of having those tops be horizontal, I would have turned it vertical. It would have just supported the weight better. I wouldn't have any sagging. I had to end up going and putting supports on there. It also would have allowed for another thing that I wish I would have thought about on this table. And we'll talk about that once the tabletop's actually on there. As for mistakes on the legs, more robust material. I think pipe would have looked great. So obviously it's here, getting the tabletop on, putting that wood shelf in the bottom. We already talked about how I would put expanded metal there. If you found any part of this video helpful, consider hitting the subscribe button. It helps me just continue to build shit. So for the last change I would make is when I put this table on, you're gonna see I only have like a 5/8 inch overhang. There's just not enough room to clamp anything. So by making either the frame smaller or turning those other pieces vertical, it would have given me something to clamp to, which would just make things a lot easier. Because now I'm just gonna have to go drill a bunch of holes, and I mean that's just gonna be a whole day of drilling, and I gotta go buy a mag drill.
What the fuck do YouTubers say? Thanks for sticking around to the end. If you have any questions or suggestions, drop them in the comments below. Hit the subscribe button and follow along. Alright, I think that's good enough.